beauty of being a Naruto scholar and being almost too familiarized with the writing style of Kishimoto is that since Naruto is still running through the medium of Boruto, I feel as though I can predict pretty much everything that's gonna happen in Boruto. Because if we're being entirely real, the only twist that none of us really saw coming was Itachi not being a bad guy. But the irony of a reveal like that, proving that Itachi isn't a bad guy, raised the rest of our sensors for looking out for things like that in the future. And thus, Naruto scholars like myself are one step further to completely cracking the code that is Kishimoto. And yet every single day I'm astounded with your guys' ability to be better Kishimoto scholars than myself. As I recently received an email from somebody bringing up a very interesting plot point in Boruto and how it might pertain to Boruto's future. See, sitting and thinking about Naruto and Boruto theories is basically 50% of my job. And yet 1 in every 20 emails that I read brings a legitimately better theory than I've ever thought of to the front of my brain. And I wouldn't even go so far as to call today's video a theory, as the amount of evidence I found to substantiate this theory might actually just make it the truth. And this truth that I've discovered might quite literally be the ending of Boruto, as there's been numerous subtle hints throughout Boruto, especially in the last couple of chapters, that are pointing towards the end times. And most specifically, what those end times could mean for Boruto, Himawari, Kawaki, Naruto, and Sasuke. But most specifically, how Boruto and Himawari might be reincarnations of the Otsutsuki god. Yes, that's right. Today I'm exploring the idea that Boruto and Himawari are the inheritors of Shibai's DNA and chakra, making Boruto and Himawari direct descendants of the strongest entity in the universe. It sounds ridiculous, I'm well aware, but stick with me and you might know the ending of Boruto before it even gets drawn. Spoilers ahead, I guess. But before we get to spoiling anything, guys, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. And hey, if you're trying to avoid spoilers for Boruto, go ahead and pop over to my other channel, The Weeb Commander, where I talk about anything that's not Boruto or Naruto. We just released an entire video breaking down the history between Eldia and Marley and why Eren activated the rumbling. And if you want to hear me talk about other anime, go ahead and follow my brand new podcast that I'm doing with Danny Mata called Otaku's Anonymous, where me and Danny break down everything that happened in anime this week. But before we get into all that, today I want to talk to you guys about a brand new sponsor to the page, Ekster. Ekster is currently reinventing the wallet game. Ekster gained its notoriety by making the first ever trackable wallet, but now Ekster is on a mission to reinvent the wallet game with a plethora of new and original wallets. But Ekster isn't even stopping there. They want to reinvent all of your carry essentials with sustainable wallets, bags, and accessories that get you the most out of your day. And Ekster wallets are incredibly slim, half the size of your average wallet, still with the space for 12 cards. And a lot of that space comes from their quick access trigger mechanism that they use to lay all of your cards out for you. On top of that, there is built-in RFID protection in every single one of their wallets to protect you from data theft and wireless skimming. On top of that, all of their wallets are made with sustainable resources like vegan leather and space-grade aluminum. On top of that, Ekster also sells a tracking card. This is a solar-powered tracking device that can be placed in any wallet. This card allows you to track the location of your wallet for 2 months on a 3-hour solar charge. It not only offers you the ability to track your wallet's location through your phone, it also offers you two-way ringing capabilities and separation alerts. So what are you guys waiting for? Whether it be for the Parliament wallet or solar-powered tracking card, Ekster is changing the game. Use the link in my description or use code NCHammer23 at checkout for 25% off your order today. So the core of what we're going to be talking about today is exploring the theory that Boruto is not actually just Momoshiki's vessel, but that Boruto, more than anything, is actually Shibai's vessel. See, this, like so many other theories, was started based off a simple cosmetic similarity between Borushiki and Shibai. In order to break down this similarity, we're gonna have to talk about karma markings a little bit. Within the confines of Boruto, we've only ever seen 2 fully developed karma markings. Those would be Kawaki and Boruto. However, unfortunately for us, these fully developed karma markings differ pretty greatly between Kawaki and Boruto. While both Kawaki and Boruto manifest their karma markings from one side of their body that makes a bunch of lines over that side of the body, with the majority of their lines focusing on their arms and the side of their face which the karma marking is manifesting from, this is simply the lower level of the manifestation of the karma mark, kind of like Naruto only activating Sage mode instead of Jin Cloak plus Sage mode. Activating to the point where there's only markings on their body allows them to do things like absorb ninjutsu, increases their speed and their strength, and so on and so forth. However, at the highest level of karma marking awakening, I guess, we see something very important start to manifest on the half side of the face that's manifesting the lines of the karma marking, and this would be horns. Specifically, the horn of the Otsutsuki living inside of the karma vessel, at least is what we're supposed to believe. Because in the case of Kawaki, at least prior to the death of Ishiki, when he fully manifests the strongest version of his karma mode, he grew Ishiki's wraparound horn, very clearly demonstrating that Kawaki was leaning on the power of Ishiki. Now, Boruto also grows a horn when manifesting the strongest version of his karma mode. However, unlike Kawaki, Boruto is never under control of this strongest karma mode, as the only times we've ever seen Boruto manifest a horn is when Momoshiki was in control. What's weird about the manifestation of this horn, though, is that it's not Momoshiki's horn. See, Momoshiki pre-fusing didn't even really have horns. They were kind of like rabbit ears. And more importantly than anything, these rabbit ears came from the top of his head. And Momoshiki, after fusing, also didn't really have horns. I mean, he did, but not in the place that Boruto has them. See, after fusing, Momoshiki's horns went from rabbit ears to kind of bull horns, but still on top of his head, which would mean that if Boruto was to manifest the horn of Momoshiki when Momoshiki took over his karma mode, much in the same way that Kawaki did when he was either manifesting all of Ishiki's strength or Ishiki was ceding control of his body, that he either should have grown a rabbit ear or a bull horn out of the mid to back of his head. But he doesn't. Instead, Boruto grows a horn from his forehead, a curved horn that thins out at the top and comes to a tip. And while for a while we just assumed that Boruto and Momoshiki have a different relationship than Kawaki and Ishiki, or that it's entirely possible that Boruto is manifesting Momoshiki's ears but kind of in reverse, like at the front of his head, that was until, of course, we got the first images of Shibai, who has two horns that come out of his forehead that are curved, that come together at the top to make a tip. They are, for all intents and purposes, panel for panel, Boruto's horns, which by itself is a weird little coincidence until you realize in that same panel, the only panel we have of Shibai's appearance from the front, that on Shibai's right side, he has a pale eye. Now that's weird, but also not so weird. It's weird because Boruto's right eye, while under the control of Momoshiki, is a Byakugan, which makes sense when we consider that the base eye of an Otsutsuki is a Byakugan, and that Momoshiki, even though he had a Rinnegan in his forehead and his palms, had two Byakugan for each eye. However, if we were also hypothetically talking about Shibai, and this pale eye of Shibai's was a Byakugan, it would also line up with Boruto's karma mode, because Shibai also has a Byakugan in his right eye. But Boruto's right eye isn't only a Byakugan, it's also a Jogan, which has been something that Momoshiki has been suspicious about and highly intrigued in since the moment he saw Boruto. In fact, it's the entire reason that Momoshiki chose Boruto to receive his karma seal. So what if this pale eye that we're seeing in Shibai's black and white panel isn't a Byakugan and is in fact a Jogan? It would make sense for a lot of reasons. Most notably being that the first time we actually ever saw Shibai is when Ishiki was talking to Code after his death, and he told Code to try to eat as many chakra fruits as possible to become an Otsutsuki god. At which point we were given an image of an Otsutsuki god that we didn't know was Shibai, but this Otsutsuki god had three eyes, one of them being a Rinnegan in his forehead, much like Shibai, and was surrounded by walls of eyes, which we now know are most likely Jogan, considering the fact that the colorized version of the manga decided to draw these eyes blue and is not white, implying that the power of the Jogan is directly tied into the Otsutsuki god, which once again, to bring things back to Momoshiki, would be the reason that Momoshiki would want to make Boruto his karmic vessel. If he was to make him his karmic vessel and reincarnate through Boruto, he himself would acquire these abilities. People assume that Momoshiki chose Boruto because they were in contact at the moment of Momoshiki's death, but you know who else was in contact with Momoshiki at the moment of his death? Naruto. It was a family Rasengan. And in that moment, Momoshiki decided to place a karma marking on Boruto, not Naruto. So the real question becomes, how did Boruto become the inheritor of Shibai's DNA and chakra? How did Boruto essentially become a white karma mark user for Shibai, inheriting possibly his powers, but not his will? And mind you, people with white karma markings like Code can receive black karma markings. In fact, it was Boruto and Kawaki's original idea for Boruto to place a karma marking on Code and manifest his personality back through Code to reincarnate in a body that Boroshiki wouldn't be able to take over, since Code had already proved to have been compatible with the karma marking because of his white karma seal. And honestly, the true meat of this theory cracks into answering this question. See, we understand that Shibai's corpse is on Earth, as Amado and Ishiki use Shibai's corpse to pass Shinjutsu to the cyborgs like Ada and Daemon. And we No, I'm throwing that in quotation marks because we can never really trust anything Amado says, or Momoshiki for that matter, who are the two people feeding us information in this situation, that Shibai went through so many karmic reincarnations and ate so many chakra fruits that he no longer needed a body. Therefore, he abandoned his body and rose to a dimension of his own where he now currently exists. Now, whether or not this body was truly abandoned on Earth doesn't really mean that much in the grand scheme of things, because we know at the very least that Ishiki was in possession of this body. Now, obviously, they only began doing experiments with Shibai's body like 2 decades ago, as Ada is 16, I believe? But for the sake of this theory, let's assume that Shibai did cast away his body on Earth, which is possibly corroborated by the fact that at the car hideout, there was 2 Otsutsuki symbols that were old and decayed and broken. And as these symbols looked significantly older than the other symbols that were there, which were created for Ishiki, Kaguya, Momoshiki, and Kinshiki, this would imply that Shibai and possibly his lower ranking Otsutsuki had come to Earth long before those 4. So as it currently stands within the confines of what we're talking about today, Shibai's corpse has existed on Earth for possibly thousands of years, long before Kaguya and Ishiki descended down to Earth to make it into a chakra fruit. And in fact, the fact that Shibai's body existed on Earth could quite possibly be the reason that Kaguya and Ishiki chose to go to Earth. See, here's the thing. We know that Shibai's body still exists and still very much contains his DNA and chakra, as Ishiki and Amado were using Shibai's body to implant Shinjutsu in the cyborgs, which would require not only his chakra, but his DNA. And considering the fact that Shibai had eaten possibly hundreds of chakra fruits, he was probably all but immortal when he shed his body, which means that his body almost definitely did not decay. I mean, we've been digging up Hashirama's corpse for like 8 decades to get cells, and he was just a dude. So to assume that Shibai's body still very much exists in the state that he left it, not crazy. And thus Shibai leaving his body on Earth explains why there was so much interest in Earth. See, we know that the way that a divine tree works is that it grows its roots into the earth and absorbs all of the nature, chakra, energy, DNA, everything of a planet until the entire planet is sucked dry, and that creates a chakra fruit. This chakra fruit, upon being consumed, gives longevity and increased strength to the Otsutsuki who eats it. So what if, hypothetically, you were to grow a divine tree on the planet where Shibai's corpse exists? Well, as his DNA and chakra still very much exists on Earth, that divine tree would then suck up the DNA and chakra of Shibai's body, meaning that the person who consumed this chakra fruit would not only consume all of the chakra and DNA of the earth, but also the DNA and the chakra of Shibai Otsutsuki. And considering the fact that this body had gone through karmic reincarnation dozens of times and consumed hundreds of chakra fruits and knew every single Shinjutsu, that'd be a hell of a fruit. And somebody did eat this fruit. Specifically, Kaguya ate this fruit. See, the only person who's ever eaten Earth's chakra fruit was Kaguya, thousands of years before the timeline of Naruto. But what's weird about Kaguya eating the chakra fruit is that it didn't kill the Earth, even though the one that she was trying to create during the 4th Great Shinobi World War and during her battle against her 2 sons would have. On top of the fact that every single divine tree that Momoshiki has ever grown destroyed the planet it was grown on. So the real question becomes, why did this one chakra fruit not kill Earth, the chakra fruit that gave Kaguya chakra in the first place? Well, one reason that people posit is that Kaguya only used the lower half of Ishiki to make this divine tree grow. As we know, that Kaguya jumps Ishiki and tears him in half. So people believe that with only half of Ishiki, Kaguya wasn't able to grow a full divine tree that would eat all of Earth. And Kaguya, after eating this chakra fruit, awakens a Rinne Sharingan, which he uses to enact infinite Tsukiyomi, which is kind of backwards to things as we know now, but stick with me here. Upon enacting infinite Tsukiyomi, Kaguya rules over the Earth, and we know that she uses infinite Tsukiyomi to create 100,000 white Zetsu, people whose energy and DNA was sucked into the divine tree. Kaguya then uses newfound chakra power and the power of the divine tree to rule over humanity. Cool, we know that. But this kind of ignores everything that we know about how divine trees work. Momoshiki and Ishiki have even gone on to say that sacrificing somebody who's not fully Otsutsuki, like Kawaki or Boruto, before they fully go through their Otsutsufication would still grow a divine tree, but the chakra fruit itself would be of low quality, which implies to me that the planet itself would still be consumed, but the chakra fruit wouldn't be that powerful, which leads me to 2 possible conclusions. One, the original story we're told about Kaguya going from planet to planet looking for a divine tree isn't actually wrong. See, well, obviously in Naruto it's explained that Kaguya went from planet to planet looking for divine trees whose seeds had fallen off of meteors. That part is obviously wrong, but the idea of Kaguya going from planet to planet may not be. Well, obviously we now know that she was accompanying Ishiki on these tours. What if instead of hypothetically using Ishiki's legs to create a divine tree, that they just found a divine tree? Specifically, they found a divine tree on Earth. And this was the divine tree they were looking for. Now, this divine tree would be made in the way of divine trees as we understand them currently. A team of Otsutsukis who feed a lower ranking Otsutsuki to the 10 tails, and then boom, a divine tree grows. Easy enough, but who are they? Well, more likely than not, they're the two broken symbols at the Kara hideout, which explains why those symbols are significantly older than all of the other symbols, because they were there before Kaguya and Ishiki, who showed up 2,000 years ago. This divine tree was planted using Shibai's lower ranking Otsutsuki and bared a fruit. Now, once again, one of two things could have happened here. It's either a possibility that this divine tree sucked all of the life out of Earth, but over thousands of years that life came back, or it's a possibility that this divine tree didn't suck all of the life out of Earth. What truly matters is that this divine tree bears a fruit for Shibai, and this is the chakra fruit that pushed Shibai over the threshold of being able to abandon his body. And thus, Shibai's body is left on Earth, possibly at the base of the divine tree. And over the course of thousands of years, Shibai's body seeps chakra and DNA into the base of this divine tree. Not to mention that the early days of Naruto, there is an existent divine tree, which is said to suck all of the nature energy around it and kill anybody who gets close enough. Assuming that for thousands of years, this divine tree has been sucking the nature energy around it and killing anybody who's dumb enough to get close to it, slowly but surely this divine tree would grow, once again, a chakra fruit. And since there was no one there to cast infinite Tsukiyomi to send the divine tree's roots all around Earth like Madara did in the war arc, this divine tree made what many would assume to be a humble chakra fruit. A humble chakra fruit meaning that this chakra fruit shouldn't be that strong considering the fact it hasn't killed that many people, which is why after Kaguya is kidnapped by Tenzo's rival village, Tenzo is her husband, and she runs away from the warring factions who are afraid of her raw strength, that she's able to call down and consume an existing chakra fruit. Quite possibly the existing chakra fruit that Ishiki was looking for before Kaguya betrayed him. And then upon consuming this chakra fruit, Kaguya awoke to godlike power, which is weird when we consider the fact that this should have, for all intents and purposes, been a humble chakra fruit. And yet Kaguya is the only person in the history of eating chakra fruits to awaken a Rinne Sharingan. Not Ishiki, not Momoshiki, not even Shibai, at least so far as we can currently see. The eye in his forehead doesn't have any Tomei, but could operate like Sasuke's 6 Tomei Rinnegan, where he's able to awaken Tomei whenever he wants. On top of the fact that Kaguya was able to use numerous Shinjutsu that we didn't see from the likes of Momoshiki or even possibly Ishiki, as Kaguya had access to things like Ashal killing bone, her ability to travel between dimensions, her ability to pull parts of separate universes to her current location, Kajari, I'm looking it up. Ame Namanaka. Kaguya, by the simple act of eating one chakra fruit that wasn't that powerful, rose to godlike power. And while obviously we can never know if Kaguya was more powerful than Momoshiki or Kinshiki or Ishiki or Oroshiki, the fact that she's able to be placed in the same conversation as them after only eating one what should have been a weak chakra fruit raises a couple of red flags. So what if the real reason that Kaguya acquired all this power from just one chakra fruit wasn't just plot necessity, but instead Shibai's DNA and chakra? And the thing is, this theory actually unites what we know from Naruto and Boruto without retconning anything. Kaguya eats the chakra fruit. The divine tree still exists. The divine tree that was created by Shibai and his underling through the process which has been lined out in Boruto. That divine tree still exists, and Kaguya, upon realizing that her sons have chakra, wants that divine tree to eat the entire world to make another chakra fruit that she can consume. Kaguya is unable to do this, and the divine tree is reverted back into a Ten-Tails. A Ten-Tails, which Hagoromo becomes the Jinchuriki of for a couple of decades, and then subsequently splits into the Nine-Tailed Beasts. Nine-Tailed Beast that Momoshiki tries to bring back together to recreate the Ten-Tails, to feed Kinshiki to recreate the divine tree. This also explains why Kaguya and Ishiki would bring the Ten-Tails that exist at the Kara hideout, as while they were looking for the divine tree that Shibai possibly abandoned his body under, they were also traveling with a Ten-Tails to seed other planets. And just like that, every single plot point in Naruto and Boruto is connected seamlessly. The other possible explanation, because in the way beginning of all of this I said there was two, is that Kaguya, after creating the divine tree, didn't want to destroy the entire world because she was in love with Tenzo. And because she was in love with Tenzo and wanted a place to raise her children, she didn't destroy the entirety of Earth. But that doesn't explain why there's two Ten-Tails, as that would imply that Kaguya and Ishiki had brought a Ten-Tails which Kaguya fed the lower half of Ishiki to, and now there's just the second Ten-Tail. So I'm going with the first, but it's up to you. So how does any of this relate to Boruto? Fantastic question. Talk about that, we're gonna talk about another theory I've had for a long time. See, Boruto and Himawari are technically the inheritors of Kaguya's chakra. What do I mean by that? Well, think about it for a sec. Naruto during the war arc received Hagoromo's chakra directly from Hagoromo, giving Naruto Sage of Six Paths chakra, which he still has. And since we know chakra ghosts are absolutely a thing, considering the fact that we've very much seen that Ashura's chakra ghost clings to Naruto, which makes Naruto a literal reincarnation of Ashura, Hagoromo giving his chakra over to Naruto also kind of makes Naruto Hagoromo. But Naruto isn't the only person who's received chakra from one of Kaguya's children, as during the last, when Naruto and Hinata were finally, you know, Kissing, Hinata goes on to receive Hamura's chakra. See, Hinata as a Hyuga is a direct descendant of Hamura, and as the current heiress to the Hyuga family, she's about as close to Hamura as she could be. Hamura also exists as a chakra ghost, much like his brother. However, Hamura is not the Sage of Six Paths, so he's a little bit weaker, therefore it's harder for him to intervene in other people's lives. Therefore, it was the perfect situation for Hinata to meet Hamura because Hamura lived on the moon until he died. Hamura moved to the moon with a group of his descendants to keep an eye over the earth that Hagoromo was creating, and after Hamura's death, his Tenseigan was kept alive with the Byakugans of all of his descendants. However, Hamura, realizing that the power of his Tenseigan was being abused, reached out to Hinata and offered her the rest of his chakra, which Hinata and Naruto used to destroy the Tenseigan. Now, the last is the only canon movie, so everything I'm talking about right now is as valid as the manga, which means that both Hinata and Naruto are the inheritors of Hamura and Hagoromo's chakra, respectively. And what happens when you combine the chakra of Hamura and Hagoromo? You get Kaguya, so long as we assume that the rule of Indra and Ashura's chakra makes Hagoromo applies. But Naruto and Hinata don't mix their chakra. Well, I guess considering the fact that Madara only needed to take a little bit of Hashirama's cells and stuff it in one of his wounds implies that something as simple as a blood transfusion is enough to mix chakras. And considering the fact that blood and baby nectar have the same amount of genetic material, Naruto and Hinata have two children. And for all intents and purposes, Hinata should actually technically have Naruto's chakra, which would mean that she would have Hagoromo and Hamura's chakra, which would mean that she's also Kaguya. But I don't think Kishimoto wants to go into depth about Hinata's frosting fillings, so we're gonna stick to their children. And finally, through an incredibly circuitous and arduous journey, we have made it to Boruto and Himawari, who are the physical blending of Naruto and Hinata's chakra, and thus are the physical blending of Hagoromo and Hamura's chakra, which would explain a lot of things, specifically Boruto's Jogan, a Shinjutsu which we know is tied to the Otsutsuki god that Momoshiki is interested in. And if my very linear thinking is correct, it would also explain his horn, as Boruto, as the inheritor of Kaguya's chakra, who is the inheritor of Shibai's chakra, would manifest Shibai's horn. But this explains a lot more than just Boruto's appearance and powers. In one of the more recent Boruto manga chapters, Daemon, while clinging onto Boruto and walking around with Ada, I believe shopping, sensed Himawari outside. And as he flew outside and confronted Himawari, he talked about how Himawari would be the only person in the village who would be an interesting battle, implying that Daemon, arguably the strongest person in the universe currently, thought that Himawari would be an equal in battle. Himawari is obviously blown aback by this confrontation, as Himawari, even though she is an incredibly talented Byakugan user, who is able to switch between having her regular eyes out and Byakugan eyes out, which, mind you, eye switching is an ability specific to Otsutsukis, did not believe for a singular minute that she should be battling against Daemon. But Daemon implied that Himawari should be able to battle against him, implying that Himawari most likely has access to Shinjutsu. Now, what that Shinjutsu is, we don't really know. I personally hypothesized that the Shinjutsu would be a Tenseigan, as Himawari has a Byakugan, but also has the chakra of Hagoromo and Hamura, making her a pseudo-Otsutsuki with the Byakugan of a human, which are the conditions for awakening a Tenseigan. And Otsutsuki has to acquire the Byakugan of a human and put them in their face. But honestly, her power could go beyond that. It could be some Shinjutsu we've never heard of. As ever being entirely real, Naruto in the last was able to battle against the likes of the Tenseigan in Toneri and win one-on-one. And Daemon has been around Naruto, Kawaki, and Sasuke and doesn't find any of them particularly interesting. He doesn't even find Boruto particularly interesting, which could mean that Himawari is possibly stronger than all of them. So where does this leave us? Well, more likely than not, I hypothesize that the ending of Boruto will have Himawari, Kawaki, and Boruto battling against the likes of Shibai. And they, as a family unit, with Himawari and Boruto using the vestiges of Shibai's strength against him, alongside Kawaki, who they brought back into the fold folds of their family will defeat Shibai. And as Kawaki is the inheritor of Ishiki's powers and has already become better at using them than Ishiki, being able to place living, breathing humans in the Daikotan, something that Ishiki could not do. Once him and Boruto figure out their beef, he'll be a welcome addition in the battle against the god of the universe. Not to mention that I also hypothesize that Naruto will absorb the Ten Tails and become a Ten Tails Jinchuriki so that he can battle alongside with his family. And that's it, the revealed ending to Boruto. I feel as though this might be the most comprehensive iceberg video I've ever made. I feel like this has been a real coming of age moment for me, where I've dragged together 3 or 4 of my favorite theories and found a way to stitch them together into a mega theory. What do you guys think? Do you have any other addendums or ideas for this theory? Tell me in the comments below. And while you guys are down there, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. Listen, I'm not telling Kishimoto how to write a story, but if this is the ending of Boruto, I'm just gonna say, have me as a co-writer on Minato the previous generations.